So, welcome to the Best is Surrey podcast. My name is Paul Deach.
And I'm Marisa Heath.
Now, Marissa, we've been off for Christmas. You've been overseas.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
I went to Malaysia to see my father after a bout of suffering from that ridiculous illness that seems to be,
Everyone's at it.
honestly, it was so bad. It took me out for the whole of December. So if anyone's listening and I haven't replied to your email or text message, chase me up on it because I was literally immovable. I couldn't do anything. So I managed to get away, see my father and get some sunshine and feel a bit better now.
Right, fantastic. And was it really, really hot there?
It's rainy season there, but it's still hot, it's still t-shirt and shorts weather no matter what. So it's not bright sunshine all the time, but it's warm. And I tell you what, getting off that plane and coming back into this was just like, my good God, it was hideous. It was,
Well,
was
I
it this was
remember.
it like this the whole of the Christmas period?
No, not really. But I remember the day you got back.
Mm.
Right, because we were messaging on WhatsApp, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God!" I mean, it'd been -6 that morning that you landed back in. So, when you get off a plane when you go on holiday and the heat hits you, well, the cold must have hit you.
It did. And I'm meant for hot climates. I was meant to be born somewhere different. Seriously. I sort of thrive in warm climates. So I'm just surviving now. I've got this massive jumper. I've got about four massive jumpers on right now, actually.
Yeah, well, I actually quite like the cold, to be honest.
You?
Yeah, it's a bit weird, I know, but being a photographer, I like what the light does in the winter.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, I don't know, I just quite like it. It's easier to keep warm than it is to keep cool, I think.
Yeah, see, I think the opposite, but I have to say, at least it's not raining because I'm fed up of those gloomy grey days. At least it's that crisp, frosty. It's really beautiful, isn't it? It's nice walking
It,
on the
it,
countryside at the moment. So.
yeah, absolutely. So there's been loads going on,
Mhm.
um, with particularly with local government.
Mm.
Probably the biggest thing. We're both councillors. We're both county councillors. We've both been borough councillors. But the biggest thing, certainly in my time in local government, I was first elected to Surrey Heath Borough Council in 2011. What year were you first elected?
2003, so
Gosh.
yeah.
So, uh, certainly in our time in local government, in all that time, this is the reorganisation of local government as a result of the English Devolution White Paper that the
Mhm.
government released just before Christmas is going to be the biggest thing to have ever happened to local government, certainly in Surrey.
Yeah.
Uh, Probably since I think it was the 70s, the last time local government was reorganised into what we have right now. And I remember Ernest Mallet, Councillor Ernest Mallet, stood up in the council meeting the other day when we were debating this. He's been a councillor, I think he said, if I remember right, 1972. Well, I was born in 1969, so
Wasn't it?
that just
Yeah.
goes to show you how long he's been a councillor. But even he was saying, it's a big deal and all the rest of it. Just wondered, were you following what was going on while you were overseas, and what are your thoughts on it all?
Yeah, I've been following it really closely. It's interesting because this government's making some quite radical changes in many areas, and it's not scared of annoying people or pushing those changes through, which could be positive in some areas. There's obviously a lot of things I don't agree with, but on this one, having been involved in local government since 2003, I'm of the view that we do need a change, basically. I think local government is broken. It's not
Agree.
functioning in the way it should. And I've been quite worried about it for about 3, 4, 5 years now about the direction it's going in. So actually, I think this is probably a good thing that the government are wanting to do something. Whether the proposals are right, perhaps we can have a conversation about that now. I think there's some good points. I think there's some bad points. There's a lot to work through.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if I'm honest, and I said in my speech when we debated this at council last week, that I was actually disappointed that the Conservative government didn't take the opportunity to reorganise local
Yeah.
government. I
Yeah.
know when Boris had his 80-seat majority, he had the mandate in government to do it, and he didn't take that opportunity. And I think the reason for that is actually quite a lot of Conservative councillors um, weren't happy
That.
about it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, when people have got the positions or they're happily working within a council, it's the whole turkeys and Christmas thing, isn't it? I suppose. So I actually think government does need to take leadership in this and come down and say whether things are working or not. When you look at turnouts for council elections and public engagement, consultations and things like that, I don't think the levels of public engagement are strong enough. I don't think there's I think basically there's huge parts of our population within Surrey who don't get their voice heard or can't get their voice heard or don't know how to engage with local government, and that needs to change if we're going to do things better. So I think that it's good that government have stepped in actually to do something.
I completely agree with that. I, the thing is, though, is that, you know, when I've listened to all the debates, both on social media and in our council meeting the other day, I think it's fair to say that almost everybody agrees that unitarisation is a good idea. Even the Lib Dems, who,
Right.
you know, don't need any excuse to have an argument about something and will pretty much oppose anything that's come forward if it's not their idea. From in my experience, anyway, even they agree it's a good idea. I think that in this case, the only sticking point is the fact that the Labour government said in the white paper, in order to facilitate a smooth transition, and I'm sort of not exactly these words, but you know, they would consider delaying the election in
Yeah.
May, because it's a massive amount of work involved in doing what has been proposed. So that's their own. Oh, you got a visitor.
Yeah, sorry, child.
Child as well. Child as well. Um, so um, so yeah, that seems to be the only thing that people are annoyed about, is the possibility that the election will be cancelled. I think the other thing is as well is that they are also concerned that the borough and district partners are not going to be consulted, when actually Tim Oliver said in the cabinet meeting and at full council that, you know, he'll be bringing on everyone on
Yeah.
board to get the best out
I
of this.
mean, that's fair enough, but none of us are going to be consulted by a government that's made its decision on what it wants to do. So the writing's on the wall. Labour have put this white paper down. Whatever we decide, they're going ahead with this, whether we do it this year or in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, whatever it is, they're doing this. So it's
Yeah.
them that are saying we want to go forward early with authorities like Surrey. And the reason for that is because the councils, the district and borough councils, are in a really bad position. So you've got Mole Valley absolutely skint with no money. I don't think Waverley and Guildford are in a good financial position. I don't know for sure, but I've heard rumours that they're really, really struggling. You've got the massive debt from Runnymede. Spelthorne also have debt. Runnymede have debt. You know, there's all of these issues going on. Yeah. So if we don't do something early, we're basically dragging sort of dead carcasses along with us, authorities that aren't working efficiently or doing the right thing. So we're going now, and it's bad timing because there's an election due. I get that. But actually, if democracy isn't working the way it should, i.e. the councils aren't doing the job it needs to do for Surrey residents, surely that's the utmost priority. For me, the elections are very important, don't get me wrong, but I think that getting the right system's even more important. And you could have elections in May, fair enough. You could still have the elections in May if you wanted to, but you need to bear in mind, you go into Purdah in April, you come out in May, you take at least a month to settle in and get the new people in their positions and things. So you start work again in June. So that's 3 months out of a year in order to prepare us for the new unitary model next year. And it's a massive work. I mean, incredible amounts of work. Not only that, you spend between 1 and 2 million quid on an election that you then repeat next year for the new authorities. So I don't think people are explaining that situation very well at all. This isn't about people clinging on to power. And for one thing I'm really annoyed about is the rhetoric put out by mainly the Liberal Democrats that it's the Conservatives calling not to have an election. That is absolutely incorrect. The Conservatives are saying to the Labour government, okay, fine, we know we're heading this direction. We'd prefer to do it earlier because of the financial situation of the councils, and also because it allows us to try and have some control over the process to get it right for Surrey, rather than just being led by Westminster officials who don't give a damn about Surrey potentially. But we're not calling for a delay in elections. We're simply saying, let's get on and do this. And yet the Liberal Democrats are saying that we're asking for elections to be binned, and that's completely wrong.
Yeah, well, the thing is we know the Liberal Democrats will, just try and destabilise whatever's going on
Politicising it.
for their own benefit. And that, you know, uh, the fact is though is that, uh, and I didn't know this at the time, but we found out just before the meeting last week that what the cost of an election is, and it's touching 2.5 million for
Oh, it's more than I thought. I thought it was between 1 and 2. Wow.
two and a
Wow.
half million apparently. And the thing is that what, and again, a Liberal Democrat councillor stood up in the meeting and said, "Oh well, last week you were saying it was 1 million. Now you're saying it's 2.5 million. You obviously can't do your sums." Well, actually, that information came from the borough and districts because
Right. The
the
information,
borough,
we had to collect all the data and things, didn't we, to get the right figure?
and
But
it's them that actually hold it. It's the borough and districts that actually organise the elections.
okay. Well, I would not support spending 2.5 million quid that could be spent on vulnerable people in this community for an election that then takes place a few months later for a whole new authority. At the end of the day, we're not clinging to power because we're about to be abolished. It's not just the districts and boroughs. We at the county council are going to be abolished as well. It's a
That's right.
complete wipe out. So all I care about is getting the right system. I want to leave after my 20+ years of working in local government thinking there's a better system in place. I'm not planning to sort of stay around forever. So that's where I'd
Same
like
here.
to have them.
Yeah, same here. And the other thing is as well is that whenever there's an election, we don't have council officers in the Democratic. Well, we do have dedicated Democratic Services officers at the council,
Yeah,
but what they do when there's an election, because it's such a big thing and it's so resource intensive, they bring in officers from other departments to help
right.
them manage the election. And the thing is if you're doing a local government reorganisation and an election at the same time, that's
Uh, yeah.
it's just going to be problematic for
But
all.
it
But one
takes
thing I
big.
will say, Marissa,
Mm,
if there's and I said this in my meet in the debate the other day, if there's an election tomorrow or in May next year, personally speaking, makes no odds to me. I'm ready.
mm,
Whenever there's an election, and actually, selfishly, I would personally prefer the election to be in May, not for
yeah,
any other reason other than I think that it's going to be, the longer it's left, the more chance I've got of losing.
sure.
You know what I mean? Because anything that they say in politics, a week is a long time. Well, a year is a flipping lifetime, and
Yeah,
anything
and
can happen in that
and
time.
Labour might force a model onto us that our residents don't like and that we can't fight back against. And they might, the vote might take it out on us. So it's a massive burden to carry over this year. And I don't think anyone should underestimate the depth of work that needs to be done. So you've got 11 districts and boroughs and a county council all dealing with millions, a billion at the county, all of this money, all of this debt, which also is in the hundreds of millions, massive debts everywhere as well, all of the issues around housing, the environmental projects where we're changing our buildings and things like that. It's huge. To be able to sort of move that over into 2 unitaries is a piece of work that is immense. I mean, my mind will be blown at them doing it within a year, but that's the target they've set themselves. And it has to be done well, because if you don't get it done well, and somebody said to me, oh, well, it's easy, isn't it? You just cut Surrey in half and off you go. And as you know too well, Paul, the issue is with Surrey is there's some areas, mainly the rural ones, that don't have the economic prosperity of some of the other areas, the more urban business related ones. We can't just chop Surrey in half and hope it will work. One unitary could fall over and have no money and not be able to do anything, and the other unitary might be okay. We've got to look at the economic modelling across the whole of this county to make sure the division is right and that we balance these unitaries up and that it's done really fairly. And I don't think any resident would want officers, those people paid to do this work, to then spend 3 months, messing around on other things if their focus should be on making sure that long term this is the right thing to do. And again, I'm not underestimating the importance of elections and local democracy. I'm really not. It's important. But as I've said to you at the beginning of this, my issue is getting democracy right and a better model in place.
And I completely agree with that. But being more positive though, so there are going to be some challenges. There's no doubt about that. But on a positive front, when you look at places where this has already happened,
Mm.
and again, I said this in the debate the other day. I'm from Manchester. I was born in Salford. Grew up in a place called Whitefield, which is sort of in between Bury and the city centre. Greater Manchester has done really well out of unitarisation. I mean, they have got a really good mayor in Andy Burnham.
Yeah.
And they've done some incredible things. So, all the things that you and I are really passionate about, like the environment, public transportation, and all that sort of stuff. Well, they've done a lot of that there in Greater Manchester. They've done an amazing integrated public transportation system called the B. You can literally get anywhere on a bus, a tram, trains. It's fantastic in Manchester, not dissimilar to London. And when you look at Manchester as well, the makeup of Manchester is very similar to Surrey in a lot of respects. So you've got mega urban areas, but also deep countryside, in the middle of nowhere type countryside, a bit like some of the places you've shown me around in Dorking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's really interesting because I had read that they'd managed to obtain lots of funding and things. And I suppose it brings us on to the conversation about the Surrey mayor role. So the government are saying part of the deal is that we have a Surrey mayor. And we haven't obviously had this before. I've got mixed feelings about it because they're trying to devolve power. The aim is to put more power within Surrey, which when we've got a Labour government, I say, excellent, let's have more power so we can make decisions about how we protect Surrey and look after it, put the housing in the right place, etc., etc. And if we can get funding, amazing. A Surrey mayor would be able to set a strategic plan. So they'd be able to say, right, across Surrey, this is what I want to do on public transport. This is what I want to do on the environment. And I think that could work really well. But it's also giving a lot of power to one person, isn't it? Potentially.
It is, except when you look at things like planning, for instance, when you think about the progress needed with development, and a more holistic approach to all the things that you need around that, so public transportation and all that sort of stuff. When you think about that, the people that get in the way of that progress are actually the politicians, the
Yeah.
councillors, right?
Yeah.
That planning is not meant to be political, but you and I both know it is,
Mm.
right? And the thing is if you've got one person who's responsible for the sort of big strategic stuff, and that those decisions rest with that person, I think there's probably going to be a lot more accountability, but also I think that it will be easier to make the big decisions.
Yeah, and to get things done. I mean, again, the levels of bureaucracy you have to go through and the disjointedness between the districts and boroughs and the county council drives me mad, let alone residents. I mean, residents get annoyed when they phone one authority, he then points them to the other authority, he then points them back to that authority, and they go back and forth. So you'll get rid of that. You will know who's responsible and they'll be able to go direct to them. But I guess the Surrey mayor will have to be very accountable. They will have to work with the cabinets of each unitary authority and a team around them, but also be accountable to the people who will be able to say, actually, it's you responsible for doing this. I mean, you've seen the impact, what's happening in Los Angeles at the moment, and they're all pointing the finger at the mayor because she cut the funding for the fire services, didn't she? That sort of level of accountability could happen here where they
Yeah.
have to make some serious choices, having gone through lots of debate and scrutiny and working with residents groups and all sorts of things. Just interestingly, just to reassure some people, my residents in particular, we don't have parish councils in Englefield Green area and Egham and a lot of Runnymede, in fact. I don't think you do in Surrey Heath really either, do you?
We do have parish councils, but not where I am right now. So in Mitchett, Frimley Green, and Deepcote, which is my county council division, there are no parish councils.
Oh, right, because my residents were concerned. They said, oh, it's fair enough for areas where they've got parish councils and they can give them more of a voice so that they
Right.
can feed into the unitaries. But what about areas without parishes? And I think there is scope here to perhaps introduce more town and parish councils, or certainly give residents groups more power to be able to talk and represent their area so you don't lose that
Yeah,
local accountability.
I've got mixed feelings about that, to be honest. I mean, if you introduce parish or town councils,
Mm.
that's still just you've taken away one layer of bureaucracy and introduced another.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the thing is though is that when you consider how many councillors there are in Surrey, right? And I didn't know this again until last week, but there's apparently 600 councillors in Surrey.
Wow. Wow.
There's 80, yeah, there's 81 of us county councillors at Surrey County Council. And then when you divvy up all the borough and district councils, you know, it's Surrey Heath, there's 36
Yeah.
alone. So,
Yeah.
you know, when you add them all up, and there's some really big councils as well, and when you add the town councils, the parish councils, yeah, 600 councillors in Surrey.
Wow.
And I'll say something now that will probably irritate quite a few people, but if you cut them in half, I don't think anyone would notice.
Oh, no, you wouldn't notice in a million years. And I'll say something that will also annoy people. There's a load of councillors that don't do anything, frankly. They're not pulling their
Of all
weight.
parties,
Yeah.
including our own.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what I would say is getting rid of some of the dearth, basically, and making it more competitive to be in the unitary councils might bring the cream to the top, and you could end up with having a much higher caliber of councillor who works with their residents much more closely and is more accountable. So I see that as a positive.
Yeah, and not to mention the cost, because you know councillors don't get paid as such. They don't get a wage, but they do get an allowance. And when
Yeah,
you add them all together,
yeah,
that's a lot of money when you add them all together. Not forgetting also from the council officer point of view, the current state of play is we've got 12 chief executive officers, all on, I would suggest probably about 200 grand a pop each, right? Then you've got 12 legal officers, 12 finance officers, all on substantial wages. I'm not saying they don't earn it, but they're all on big wages. And then 12 departments of everything, where this situation is going to significantly reduce all of that. And again, I honestly don't think anyone will notice.
No, I don't think they will. So basically, I mean, as it is today, we wait and see what the Labour government decides to do about the elections. It's not us making the decision. It's up to, it's them who will make the decision, whether they want Surrey in the first tranche. So they might say we don't want Surrey in the first tranche, in which case things continue as normal. Or they might say, yes, we want Surrey in the first tranche, continue with your election and we'll just work around it. Or they might say, we'll cancel the election, you're going ahead. Who knows? It's not our decision. And I find it really disingenuous that the Liberal Democrats and others are making it look like it's our decision. The only thing we're saying is, yes, we know that the government are taking us in this direction. We prefer to do it before our councils go bust. And, when we've got a bit of control over how it actually works out. We will wait to see what happens about a Surrey mayor and what sort of candidates decide to put themselves forward. That will be an interesting.
I think you would make an excellent mayor of Surrey, Marisa. I think you would suit those red robes and all the rest of it.
Whoever decides to do it, it's a massive, massive job, and they will need to be 110% committed to it and take on a huge level of responsibility. So it will be interesting. I mean, it will be more powerful than an MP. It'll be more powerful than a backbench MP.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
It'll be interesting to see who comes forward for that. I guess in a couple of weeks we'll get Angela Rayner will probably write and say what she's thinking about next. So I guess we could do an update then when that happens. But I think this is a topic that everyone should be interested in because it will have an impact on them.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I have to say that the level of engagement. So as you know, I'm quite prolific on social media, right? And I posted about the local government reorganisation about a week before our meeting last week.
Yeah.
And then I posted about the meeting itself. Okay. And I've got to say that the post that I did about a chicken soup that I'd made generated way more engagement than it did on the biggest decision that's ever going to be made in local government. Which is worrying, actually. We laugh at it, but actually that's quite worrying how...
No, but to me, that showed what I said at the beginning, the lack of engagement, because it's not working effectively. If people don't feel the system's working for them or listening to them, they're not going to engage. So therefore something needs to change.
Which is why you, me, and every other councillor in Surrey, not just the county councillors, but the district and borough councillors, and anyone who is interested in this stuff, needs to engage with the process in a an intelligent way instead of
Yeah, don't
trying to
listen to all the
score
rubbish on
political
social media.
points.
Yeah, yeah.
Trying to score political points is not. We have an opportunity here
Mhm.
to make local government in Surrey amazing. And as far as I'm concerned, the more minds that we get together, the experience, and try and make the best of this thing, the better, as far as
And
I'm
I think
concerned.
that's spot on. We have to see it as an opportunity, absolutely, because it's happening to us anyway. So we need to make the most of it. So I think that's probably a good note to wrap up on. Maybe our next podcast needs to be on food then, because it'll be more interesting and people will like
On,
that more.
on what?
On food.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, it's something I'm very interested in at the moment. And actually, that's where we'll finish the podcast in so much as saying that some of the things we're going to cover off this year. So
Mhm.
there's one topic that I really want to do, which I mentioned last year, but I wanted to do proper research on it, and that is the legalization of cannabis or the decriminalization of cannabis. That's
Mhm.
one that I definitely want to do. Obviously, the reorganization of local government is going to come up regularly, I would
Yeah,
imagine,
yeah,
as the process progresses. Um, but also, I'd like to do an idea that you gave me when we chatted before Christmas, on food security and the cost of food right now. And I
yeah.
know food is something that you're a
Yeah.
particular
Oh,
expert on.
can I just say, so in Malaysia, you go out for dinner at a really nice restaurant, and for four of you, you'll try your best to spend over £28. So I've spent, almost 3 weeks doing that, eating really good
Each
food. No, for all of you, including
or
drinks.
bloody
And I'm
hell.
talking like, high-end Japanese restaurant or Thai restaurant, whatever it is. We were eating loads. I'd come home feeling absolutely stuffed, and we spent £28. But my dad, Petra, my sister, and I couldn't, the four of us basically. So I came home. First thing I did, went to Waitrose, one bag of shopping, £46. I literally had no food in there. I got home and was just like, what the hell? I feel like I've been robbed.
28 quid in a posh restaurant.
Yeah.
Good food. Well,
Yeah.
I
Oh, the
can
food's
tell
excellent. The food's
I,
excellent.
I can tell you that a trip to McDonald's for a family these days costs more than that.
Oh, I believe you. Well, I know it does. So, yeah, I think we should talk about that because having come back from, I know it's you can't compare a country like Malaysia with the UK, but honestly, the quality of life is a different grade because here you come back and you are just, the cost of living here is extraordinary now. Um, my Liberal Democrat opponent last July said that he was going to sort the cost of living. I've yet to see any evidence of that. It's gone up and it's going to go up further. And I just don't see how people are affording this. It must be breaking so many families. So we should talk about that, but also we could signpost some ways where there are some places in Surrey where you can get more affordable things or the services we offer and things like that and try and make it useful. But I think it'd be interesting to bring a farmer on as well and speak to a farmer about the impact things are having on actually farming and producing food. So maybe we'll find a Surrey farmer for a
Well, I'd
future
like
one.
to, and maybe get a nutritionalist on as well, because the thing is that I started long before Christmas, so it's not a New Year's resolution, but long before Christmas, actually, late November, early December, I went on a mega health kick, only because I did my blood pressure and it was slightly high, and I thought, at my age and all the rest of it, I better do something about that. And I realised how much crap I eat. But
Mm.
what the thing that really surprises me is that crap is significantly cheaper
Yeah.
than fresh vegetables and whole foods and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
And there's something, this ultra processed stuff. It doesn't compute with me that how that can be much cheaper than the good stuff that comes out the ground. I just don't
Well,
understand that.
it goes back to a conversation about local and how you create local systems that are affordable. I would like to do a podcast on rural funding and the need for supporting our rural businesses and what government should be doing, and click that into this conversation as well. Because until we make the ability to buy sort of more local food, British produced food affordable, then we will carry on being just washed away by mass produced ultra processed foods.
But the impact on society. So the NHS is a big topic in the media at the moment. It's no wonder heart disease is so prevalent, that we've got kids that are morbidly obese. We've got to sort it out, and I think that the food is probably the best starting point.
Oh, the food is, because we don't look at the big picture. There's never been any strategic thinking about the cost on the NHS and mental health and people's inability to work and all of that kind of thing aligned to food and health and nutrition. And if you did that and took the money out of the back end and put it into prevention and better food and making it more affordable for people to eat good quality food, then you'd save the money in the long run. But unfortunately, we're in a firefighting position where we allow people access to that cheaper food because it's just easy, and the companies are, corporates are taking over and things, and then we throw the money into trying to fix it down the line, and it's totally unjust. It's a totally unjust system.
Okay, well, that will be a really good topic. That we'll have to get some prep and get some really good contributors in on that. People, I mean, I know you know what you're talking about when it comes to food, but maybe we get a
Yeah, no,
nutritionalist in, a
yeah,
GP, all that sort of
GP
stuff.
would be
And
good. I know there's a really
yeah,
good one, Wally, who talks a lot about this. So yeah.
okay, great. Well, I think we will probably wrap it up there, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with our next podcast.
Cool. See you later.